Well, unfortunately, Xavier Barcons cannot be with us because mimicking Mariano Rajoy, 3 days ago he was muy positive and mucho positive. But he's okay now, and he's going to talk us from Munich. So, hola, Xavier.
Hola, Benjamin. Can you hear me?
So,
no.
Yeah, you can control your time yourself. So, yeah, you can talk for 25 minutes or 23 minutes, and then some time for questions, okay?
Okay.
Okay,
I hope
thanks.
you can hear me.
Okay, go ahead. Yes,
and
yes.
Apologies for not being there with you. I would like to tell you a little bit where we are at ESO since I last reported a couple of years ago, and where we're heading as well. And of course, I had to start with this picture that was taken about a year ago from Paranal, actually, in Chile. That's about 24 kilometers away from where the ELT is being erected. And this is an iconic picture now for all of us. It shows the progress that we're making with our most iconic project at the moment. So, first, about the output of ESO, about the science that we enable, that you do with the data that you obtain in the observatories that we operate. Again, in 2023, there were more than 1,000, almost 1,100 refereed papers using ESO data published. Those are only refereed, and those refer to only the ESO time in partnerships like APEX or ALMA. The only thing I want to underline here is the importance of the Science Archive, on which we spent significant effort. You can see that 45% of those papers make use of the archive, and actually 21% of the papers only use archival data. There is no need to obtain new data. This is important because, as I say, we're investing effort into this, and it's good to see that it pays back. This is a little bit to put it into context. You can see, of course, JWST now, skyrocketing on the amount of science that it generates, but our facilities, VLT and VLTI and ALMA, are still quite competitive in the international arena. This is a very unfair collage of a few science breakthroughs obtained in the last year or year and a half. I wanted to put this just not to lose sight of why we're doing what we do. This is precisely to enable the scientific discoveries, and of course you can see my preferences as well depicted in that slide. It's about black holes and also exoplanets at the moment, which we're generating lots of science discoveries. I don't want to go into details here, but this is really heartwarming to see how much science comes out of the effort that we do together with the community. So let me start with a general update on where we are with our observatories. Essentially, remember, we have two big observatories in operation. One is La Silla Paranal. This is optical and infrared. The other one is ALMA, a partnership with the United States and Japan in 2-millimeter radioastronomy. We're essentially going nominally in Paranal and La Silla. We keep doing obsolescence projects all the time. Remember that La Silla has become 56 years old, and Paranal has also passed 25 years of age. So that means that of course, there's things that are that need to be maintained, renewed. Otherwise, you don't even find spares in industry. One change that we're implementing now in the proposal selection process, actually, we have already implemented this double anonymous review process, and also distributed peer review for the half of the proposals that request less time per proposal. We're also going to move next year to yearly calls. That's a bit unusual for optical observatories, as you know, but we see a lot of advantages here. So our first yearly call for La Silla Paranal will be launched in 2025. And on top of this, we will have a fast-track channel that would enable proposals that could not be anticipated in the regular yearly calls still to be allocated. We're updating our scheduling process to make it flexible enough to accommodate for this. I need to also flag the fact that in the VLT, in the Very Large Telescopes, only one of the telescope units is equipped with an adaptive optics facilities with 4 lasers, which means that we can do multi-conjugate adaptive optics or adaptive optics over a relatively large field of view. The oversubscription in that telescope is just insane. It's a factor of 20 in some regions of LST, and of course that's a lot, and that links into a project that we're starting now to try to equip another telescope also with an adaptive optics facility. And also to mention about the data flow progress, we have also released in this year a new ESO data processing system that it's important for the users. The Paranal Observatory, it's undergoing an important transformation at the moment. We have started this a couple of years ago, and we call it the Integrated Operations Program. This is because in a few years' time, the observatory, the Paranal Observatory, will also have to operate the ELT. And the problem is that if we try to operate the ELT in the same way that we are operating the VLT, it's simply not scalable. Today, for example, in Paranal, we have about 150 people there every day, between 150 and 180, depending on whether there's teams installing new instruments or not. If we were to operate the ELT in the same way, we would need to have something like 380, which is absolutely impossible and makes no sense whatsoever. So we had put together this integrated operations program to redefine the operation model that we use for the observatory to make it leaner, meaning that we don't do everything that we're doing today unless it's strictly needed, remote to the extent possible. We don't have to fly the people to a very remote place to do things that could be done from Santiago in Chile or even from Germany here in Garching. And I'm not talking about remote observing, I'm talking about maintenance activities being done remotely, but still high performance. So those are the top level requirements of this integrated operations program. This program went through a phase A. It was reviewed in May 2023, and in August last year we started the phase B with the consolidation phase, and we're actually breaking the program into projects. And the first one that we're doing is actually for the process of the maintenance of the dome and the main structure of the ELT, which is being put in Armazones, and I will show you that this is actually coming very, very soon. So that's ongoing, and that will transform the way we operate our observatories, which is more consistent with the current times. Instrumentation for the VLT, the latest instrument that has been installed and it's fully operational, it's ERIS since January this year. MOONS and FORMOS, those are 2 multi-object spectrometers, one for one of the 8-meter telescopes, the other one for the VISTA telescope, a 4-meter telescope that was installed in a hill near Paranal. Those are now expected to arrive there in 2025. Gravity Plus, which is a serious upgrade of the Gravity beam combiner for the VLTI. This is progressing stepwise, nominally. There's some steps already implemented. The next one is the adaptive optics package. It has already arrived in Paranal. We're going to put a laser in each one of the UT1, UT2, and UT3. So that will improve, of course, the adaptive optics. And I'm going to say something else about this in a second. SOX, the Son of X Shooter, that is a very broadband spectrograph to equip the NTT, the New Technology Telescope in La Silla. This is also expected to arrive towards the end of 2024. And we're starting now to phase A studies. Blue Muse, which is the blue version of Muse, which is the most demanded instrument in Paranal today, and also the second deformable mirror for probably UT3 to be used in conjunction with the laser that will come with Gravity Plus. So we can offer adaptive optics in the narrow field and discharge a little bit the pressure on the UT4, which is the only one that offers full adaptive optics with assisted by lasers. So this is the picture that we're looking at in the next years. There's other instruments in development, in particular MAVIS multi-conjugate adaptive optics instrument led by Australia that should be at the telescope around 2030. So we continue upgrading and developing our instruments so the observatory keeps its competitiveness. Okay, a few words about ALMA as well. You may recall that we had a cyber attack at ALMA about a year and a half ago. Thankfully, we're fully recovered on this. So again, operations are nominal. We're progressing there also into lining up our processes. For example, the quality control now of the data sets, it's automatic for almost 40% of them. That frees up some effort that we were investing here and that we can deploy, for example, to develop the observatory. We're in cycle 10 observations. We expect to deliver something like 4,150 hours of observations. Our target is always 4,300. We don't seem to be getting there. The cycle 11 call for proposals, the results are about to be shared with the community. It's again the highest demand ever. Again, oversubscription factors are huge, comparable to space observatories like Chandra, XMM, or JWST. And they're even higher for the ESO region. We have a very active community there, which is, of course, very good. It ensures that there's very good science that can be done, but I understand it generates a lot of frustration, but unfortunately, we cannot clone ALMA. For the first time, we're going to implement dual proposals together with the James Webb and ALMA, also with the VLT and with the VLA. There's not a very high demand of this, but normally those programs are very challenging and they benefit very much by having to pass only one filter in the proposal review process. So that's very good. Yes, and therefore what the community does understandably is to use a lot more the archive, and actually in ALMA now 30% of the papers use only the archive, the data that's in the archive, and this is again normal in space observatories which have a very high demand, as it's the case in ALMA. Development of ALMA, we have an important target there, an important program that we call the wideband sensitivity upgrade. This is to make ALMA faster and being able to go deeper, to reach out to fainter sources, and making it faster, it's simply a demand from the community when you have an oversubscription factor of 8. But of course, we will be able to do things that we cannot do today. That's a big development program. It starts with the build-up of a new correlator that will not be placed at 5,000 but at 3,000 meters of altitude, new receiver bands, a new data transmission, new digitizers, new many things. The program is now under formulation and review at the end of the year, and we hope that we can approve it in April next year. In the meantime, ESO is together with the community. It's already moving forward with the delivery of the new Band 2 receivers, but also preparing for the digitizers and the new connection and the data link between the high site and the operation center in Chile. So the ELT, the Extremely Large Telescope, not to be forgotten. This is the largest, most advanced, and most advanced meaning most powerful, but also most advanced in the schedule of the 3 ELT projects. We're beyond 50% completion. We still expect to have first light in 2028, while our competing projects are not in such a good shape, either in schedule or in funding ratio. We're fully funded here with a little bit of a caveat, but that means that we only have to face our technical issues, which I can tell you there are many, but that's a place where everyone wants to be. Here, a few accounts about the dome and the main structure. This is the construction that is taking place at the site. Just to remind you, this is just the dome and the main structure. This is a 450 million project. So it's just an amazing piece of work, high precision work. And we're making very good progress despite all the difficulties. In particular, the industrial consortium that it's doing this, it was constituted by the companies. One One of them went bankrupt 3 years ago. The other one almost went bankrupt a year and a half ago. And thankfully, this didn't happen. So the work is continuing at very good pace. You will see a couple of pieces here of the dome and of the telescope. But very importantly, we expect to accept the dome and the structure of the telescope in July 26. So this is 2 years from now. In 2 years from now, we will have a telescope without mirrors, yes, and we'll have a dome that rotates and a telescope that moves and points. So that's really a very nice perspective. So this is a relatively recent picture of the dome. You can see all the structure being put in there, the cladding. The doors are the next step after the cladding is more or less done. Just remind the reference, the diameter of the auxiliary building, that thing that you can see on the ground, it's 110 meters. The height of the dome today is 60 meters, and it's rotating, the diameter of the dome is about 77 meters. So this is a gigantic beast that, despite being so big, it needs to work like a clock and with very, very high mechanical precision. This is a picture from the outside of some of the elements of the telescope. We have the azimuth tracks already in place, the bases of the two Nasmyth platforms also in place. And what you can see there is the primary mirror cell. So this is where the primary mirror will sit, and you can see that it's all very, very advanced. Optomechanics, this is of course the heart of the telescope, the mirrors. Remember that the primary mirror is 40 meters across. It consists of 798 segments, hexagonal segments of 1.5 meters. The glass, the blanks of all these segments plus the spares has already been cast. So SCHOTT, the factory, is actually closing that production line because they have delivered everything to us. Polishing, it's a big thing. The company, Safran Riosk, is now polishing regularly 5 segments per week at 10 nanometers precision. This is, again, an insane number. 126 mirror assemblies have already arrived. That means with the supports and with all the pieces that goes with every segment. They have already arrived in Paranal. 78 have already been coated. We coat them in a facility that we have in Paranal. We still, as I said, have technical challenges that we need to address, and we're working on this. Secondary mirror, this is the one hanging 30 meters above the primary mirror. This is a 4-meter mirror, polishing about to be finished as well, to better than 60 nanometers. The cells of the M2 and M3, they are being manufactured by Sener in near Barcelona. M4 proceeding at full speed. M5, always the most critical item of the optomechanics. The blank has been produced, the silicon carbide blank has been produced. Polishing will be a challenge, so we're procuring, say, a backup mirror made of glass of a more regular material, and we'll just place the contracts to produce that piece of glass and the polishing. The cell that will support the M5, it's about to be delivered already this year, also by Sener. Instruments, that's the part that the community likes the most, I know, but sorry, we have to make a telescope work before we can put an instrument on it. METIS, the mid-infrared instrument, has completed final design review, full steam ahead. Mikado, it's about to complete the final design review, only missing electronics and the system wrap-up. Harmony, it's in significant delay. There's managerial and other types of issues there. We're working with the consortium and with the executive committee trying to fix it. Morpheo, which is the beam feeder for Mikado, it's delayed but moving forward. And about a month ago, we signed the agreement to start ANDES, the high resolution ultra-stable spectrograph for the ELT, and we expect to do likewise for Mosaic next year. Other bits and pieces also progressing very well. Schedule, as I said, first technical light still in 2028. We think this is feasible, although with tight schedule. The first scientific light, it's a different challenge because we need to have one instrument working, and this is really a big challenge at the moment. Budget, don't want to go into details, but it's very tight. Well, you wouldn't expect otherwise. So here a few pictures. I think I'm going to KIP, CTA, important new appointments at ESO that have very close relationship with the community. We have now merged all the instrumentation development programs, and we have put Michele Cirasuolo in front of it, and the La Silla Paranal Observatory director, who was Andreas Kaufer for 16 years. He now remains as director of operations, but Thomas Klein will be starting 1st of August, the director of the observatory. I want to spend 2 minutes on these R&D opportunities that we have open all the time. Of course, yearly calls of proposals, the science archive, participation in instrument development for the optical telescopes. I already mentioned Blue Muse, Andes, Mosaic, and maybe also the what we call the PCS, the planetary camera spectrograph, an extreme adaptive optic instrument that we would like to develop in the long term for the ELT. But also for ALMA, this wideband sensitivity upgrade will generate lots of activity in Europe and in the other ALMA regions. And actually, we have started to use a GTO policy like we use for the instruments. That means paying contributions to development of ALMA in terms of guaranteed time observations in ALMA. That has been working very successfully for 30 years with the other telescopes, and we hope that we can use a modest chunk of a very highly demanded ALMA observing time to also help with its developments. Jobs, please don't be shy, apply for jobs. And for industry, also be aware that we have important contracts coming up all the time of all sorts. But of course, the point here is that for the ELT, we have essentially placed all the contracts now. There's only a few, very little remaining. But our council last June approved something which is very important, which is the process to identify the next ESO program. I already said La Silla 56 years old, the VLT 25 years old, ALMA 10 years since inauguration. The ELT is probably -5 years old at the moment, -4 to -5. So what's coming next? This is a question that has been coming very often, and that we have now come up with a scheme to identify what will be the next ESO program. And this is the way it will work. What our council wants is a transformational facility in the 2040s. We have to be realistic. That's always how the new projects that ESO have been transformational. That means that they are not just there to do an incremental step on something that we can already do. A facility, that means that they will serve a variety of science objectives and breakthroughs. And the 2040s, that is the best an organization like ESO can do. We cannot do a big project every decade. We're more on a 2-decade time frame. If you look backwards, that's how it works. So this could be a new telescope facility, or either at an existing observatory or at a new site. It doesn't have to be Chile. It can be anywhere else, depending on the requirements. It could also be a significant upgrade of an existing facility that it's owned or co-owned by ESO or other things. Important, we need to own this. So that's a process. That ESO is not an agency. We're not a funding agency. It's not that we have a pile of money in front of us. We certainly don't. And that we're looking for a place to put the money. We're looking for a project that we can develop together with the community and with the industry. The selection criteria for this will be very, very, very specially the scientific drive. We're not going to do something just because we know how to do it. We're going to do something that is transformational in a broad variety of places of astronomy. Of course, we need to be able to own the project. Sustainability is going to be a big thing in the coming years. Let's not forget about this. It's not only about CO2. It's not only about not traveling. It's about everything. It's about environmental sustainability. It's about social sustainability. And it's also about financial sustainability. We need to keep this in mind in a changing world. The institutional model will also count. We can do a project by ourselves, If it's too big, we'll better do it in a partnership like we did ALMA. And of course, we will also have to take into account the risks of all sorts that doing a big project after the ELT could entail. So this is more or less the timeline, and I'm about to finish now. In the next 2 years, starting now, we're going to go with essentially 2 actions. One is a communication campaign that I'm starting now, but also we're going to trigger dialogue with the scientific community. We're going to organize science workshops to debate about the science in the 2040s. So it will require quite a lot of effort in terms of vision. What is the science that we would like to do in the 2040s, taking into account what we expect will be available, the facilities that will be available in the 2020s and in the 2030s. Then there will be a call in 26 for ideas. Then there will be an assessment and the selection process. And finally, our council is expected to make the decision about the identity of the new program after the ELT in December 28. And from there, it will follow the planning, identifying the resources and the preparations, and so on. So this is more or less the timeline that we have in mind. And I think this is my last slide. Thank you very much. And again, apologies for not being able to be there. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Gracias, Xavier. Thank you. We have time for a couple of questions.
For the record, I cannot hear.
Sorry? No me oye. ¿Me oyes ahora?
Sí,
Okay.
ahora sí.
There is some question over there. Rafael Luque? Yeah.
Rafael Luque, Universidad de Chicago. Could you comment about the process of changing from 2 calls of proposals a year to once a year? This came from a request from the community, or was most like due to management, how to handle? Could you extend on the decision of moving to 1 call?
Yes. So yeah, we did. That comes back from 2016. So it's 8 years ago. We put together a time allocation working group, which made a number of recommendations, and this was one of them. And moving to a yearly call, it synchronizes with everything else. I mean, ALMA has a yearly call, and no one has ever thought about not doing it. All the space observatories have a yearly call, and there's a lot of advantage on this. We believe that this will lead to a reduction in the number of proposals. And some people even estimate that instead of having a factor of 2 more proposals in the yearly call, it will be square root 2. It also allows to synchronize with the large proposals. We only issue calls for large proposals once per year already from some time ago. But the experience shows that we need to keep a fast-track channel where people can send proposals every month or every 2 months at most. And yeah, that was the reason. So that report recommended a number of steps. We have applied some of them, and this is almost the last one of that report. So that discussion took place, as I say, almost 8 years ago.
Okay, one last question. Well, I have one. So, Xavier, I saw in one of the slides, well, there are many technical details, but there was going to be a new data processing system, which is, I think, quite interesting for the observers. What is the improvement with respect to the current one?
Well, that has already been released, so I think it's an upgrade of the previous one. It's not a totally new one. It is a significant upgrade. I cannot tell you in detail what is it, but as I say, that was released a few months ago already.
Okay.
What I didn't comment is that what we are also working on is into the deployment of an entire new data flow system. Meaning end-to-end, from when you submit your proposal until the data is quality controlled and made accessible in the archive. And the reason that we are doing this is because the one that we have today, it is not compatible with the requirements of the ELT. So we need to have this full data flow system in place before we start science observations with the ELT, and we're on track with it.
Okay. Any other remark, Xavier, that you want to make? Can you hear me? Oh. Okay, well, thank you, Xavier.
Thank you.